This last part of the workshop, we're going to focus on how to find psychosocial measures. Not always an easy thing to do, but definitely easier to find them than it is to actually get your hands on the full measure itself. So I'll talk about some strategies for finding them, and then some things that you can do, some resources you can use to actually see the complete measure. We're going to start by looking at the research guide I created for Psychosocial Instruments. To get to it, you would go up here from the library's homepage to the Student tab and click on Research Help. And then you want to scroll down to the link for Research Guides. And we're going to put in Psychosocial Instruments. That's the title of the guide. You could also put in social work and it would come up as a title. So search either by social work or specifically Psychosocial Instruments. Here's the research guide, Psychosocial Instruments. Carrie Forbes, our education librarian, also has one on educational testing and measurement. And we're going to view the home page for the Psychosocial Instruments guide. And you can see once it loads that there are various categories here. I'll go ahead and make this bigger. There's a section on instrument information and reviews, one on instrument compendia, so the sources that bring together instruments, one on journal articles, so searching PsycInfo, HaPI, for example, to identify measures. Then I also have a section on websites, which includes the frequently asked questions of the APA website. You want to take a look at that. That's really helpful. And then encyclopedias and handbooks on measurement and psychosocial measures. So the main source for identifying tests, and we're talking here about commercially available tests or measures that are in print, in English, is Tests in Print. We have it online and we also have older print copies. So we're going to look at the online version. The library does not purchase tests. They're expensive. They're also usually restricted as to who can use them and how they can be used. So if you're interested in a particular test that you find through Tests in Print, you would have to order it yourself and make sure that you clear the use guidelines. So we're in Tests in Print. As you can see, it's on the EBSCO platform. It looks just like PsycInfo or Academic Search Complete. And I'm just going to put in a keyword search for well-being. I'll leave it as the default. If I wanted to, I can limit it by a particular subject category, as you can see down here. But I don't want to limit at this point. I just kind of want to see what is out there. What are the tests or the instruments that would measure well-being? And I get 19, not a lot. So that's fine. For this topic, I may want to try other terms again because I'm using keywords. I'm relying on that keyword match. And the closest one is down here towards the bottom. It's number 15. Quality of Life Questionnaire with the acronym developed in 1989. I click on the title. And this is the type of information that is provided by Tests in Print. I get the test name, the acronym, the authors, the publication date, the publisher information. This is who you would want to contact to purchase the questionnaire. I've got the purpose. Here's my test category. It's within personality, group administration, my population, so for adults. And here are my scores. And this is where my keywords are showing up, both within material well-being and physical well-being. The time it takes to administer the test, the price, and you can see this is information from 2006. This one isn't actually very expensive. Some are very expensive, in the hundreds of dollars. And then it lets me know that there are reviews in Mental Measurements Yearbook. And happily enough, we can link directly from Tests in Print to the reviews in Mental Measurements Yearbook, right down here at the bottom. So I get this general record that gives me information about the test, how I get it, how much it costs, some of the measures. But the reviews will give me more information to evaluate the test. And I just click on that link to Mental Measurements Yearbook. And this source provides critical reviews and descriptive information for more than 2,000 still commercially available tests and instruments. Looks similar here to the other information we saw, but I see there are 2 reviews, and these are the names of the reviewers and their affiliations. This is an older review. This person from the School of Social Work at Wisconsin. And with some references, and the other review is similar. So that was Tests in Print and Mental Measurements Yearbook. And you would use those to identify and evaluate commercially available tests. But what about finding tests that are published in the journal literature? Maybe they're available commercially, maybe they're not. Maybe you would have to contact the authors directly. Well, the source to use for finding measures described and sometimes even published in the journal literature would fall into that journal category. So I'm going to close this out. And we're back to the research guide now. And we're going to go to the journal article category, as I said. And there are links here to the main databases. But the one we're going to look at, which you may or may not be familiar with, is Health and Psychosocial Instruments. The acronym is HaPI. And it's a bibliographic database with information about behavioral measurement instruments, which are abstracted from leading journals in the health sciences and psychosocial sciences. And HaPI is also on the EBSCO platform, a happy little EBSCO family. And we'll do well-being, but this time let's limit it to the measure field. So we want them specifically to measure well-being. And I'm interested, let me make this a little larger for you. I'm interested in adults, so I'm going to put in adult and truncate it. I don't know if it's adults, adulthood. I'm going to truncate it for that reason, and I want that to be within my sample. I'm also interested in female adults, so I'm going to put in female or women, and also limit that to the sample field. And again, this is looking for measures that have been discussed in journal literature within those subject areas. But they've been indexed so that you can identify them by things such as measure or sample or any of these other categories listed here. 533. We've got quite a few. Let's kind of scan through and see. There's one on spiritual well-being scale, scales of psychological well-being. That sounds good. Let's select that particular measurement tool. This lets me know that the journal is, the test is described in a secondary source. Okay, so it's described in this article, Parenthood, Stress, and Mental Health in Late Midlife and Early Old Age, published in the International Journal of Aging and Human Development. It measures mental health and well-being, so it fits my criteria, and it also is drawn from adults and females. And now I can see what the official terms are if I wanted to go back in for that category. The reference is what you want to look at here in this case. We can see that it's talking about the measure that was originally published, not necessarily the measure itself, but the development of the measure, discussion of the measure in this journal article. Happiness is Everything, or Is It? In the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology. So I could look for this journal article, and I would do that by going into the library catalog and searching by the title of the journal and getting the volume and issue that I need. But I would probably want to go back to this original article by the author of the measure and see what she or he has to say about the development of the measure. That's how to identify a test in HaPI. Let me show you one other little search technique you can employ here. I'm going to clear this and use well-being again as a measure. But now I'm going to limit it over here to primary source. Now, this sounds really promising, right? I want a measurement of well-being that actually gives me the measure within the journal literature. Now, within the primary source category, sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. So primary source could mean that the measure itself is published in the journal article, usually as appended material, or it could just be an article that talks about the original development of the measure. And you won't know until you actually find the full text of the article itself. But we're going to look for well-being and see if we can get a journal article. A primary source, I've got 99 possibilities here. This one sounds promising, symptomology and well-being measure. These are the authors of the measure. It's a primary source, and it's published in this particular journal article. So I would have to go to the full text. And when I did, it didn't have the measure appended, but it did discuss the development of the measure and some of the components of the measure. And that may be enough for you to determine if this is something you want to pursue to see if you can get the full text of the measure. And you would probably do that in this case by contacting the authors. All right, that is how to look for measures within the journal literature in the HaPI database. We're now going to look in PsycInfo, also for measures. And this time I'm going to show you a search technique that sometimes is very successful, sometimes not, but at least it's something you can try to find those measures that have been published within the journal literature, meaning the full measure or part of the measure has been appended and is there in the journal article. So again, these aren't commercially available measures. For the most part, they're going to be measures that were just published in the journal literature. So well-being again, and I know that's a descriptor from our earlier searches. And now this is what you want to do to see if you can find a measure that has been appended to the journal article. So we're going to put in append and truncate it. And then we're going to limit that to the tests and measures field. So within that field, we're hoping, because this is looking for articles specifically about well-being, that the measure will also be about well-being. You may also put in keywords that you're hoping to pick up and limit it to the tests and measures field. That's another strategy you can employ. This one's a little broader, and you sometimes have to go broader with this strategy because you may not pull up that many options, that many articles. And it found 22. That's actually pretty good. And looking through the results, number 15 down towards the bottom is probably the closest. Dimensions of well-being and their measurement, the SPF-IL scale. You need to click on the title so you can pull up the full record. And the reason why is you want to see, okay, what has actually been appended in that tests and measures field. And come down to tests and measures. And the SPF-IL battery has been appended. So if this is indeed a measure of well-being, this particular scale, it's been appended, I would be in luck and I would be able to get it. So let's see, we're going to go to the full text. You want to actually know, I mean, it says it's appended, but we have to look and see what's there, whether it's just a few sample questions from the measurement or if the complete measure is there. So here's our article. Wait till it finishes downloading. And as I said, the measures are typically appended. So you want to go past the references. And then here we have Appendix A. And it lets us see that we've got the full 58 item SPF IL battery. So you would be able to see it, evaluate it, see if this is a measure that you might want to use for your own work. But you would have to contact the authors first and get their permission. So that's some strategies for looking for measures, especially in terms of finding the full measure as published in the journal literature, hopefully at no cost to you. You can also try searching by the name of a measure or instrument out on Google. Put it in quotations. Sometimes authors will make those measures available for free on their website or for a minimal charge. But that's another alternative strategy for looking for measures. And back here at the research guide, that little trick with putting in append, I've got that buried here within the text of PsycInfo, and also some information here about other terms that you might want to use. All right. Last category we're going to look at is instrument compendia. And we do have a few books that contain either the full measure or parts of the measure. For the most part, they're grouped by subject. So you see we have scales and depression, mania and anxiety, family measurement techniques. Some of these are just abstracts. Some have sample questions or sample measures that you can see. But the one that's probably the most helpful and the most used in our collection is this one. I'm pointing to the cursor here. This is Measures for Clinical Practice and Research, a source book. This is a 2-volume work kept in the reference stacks. It actually has the full measures. So, you know, if you're looking for a measure for your research, this is probably the easiest and cheapest option for you. There are measures for couples, families, children, and adults. And it includes, as you can see from the description here, norms, scoring reliability, and also the complete measure. You would still need to contact the authors to get permission, but at least you can see the measure and determine if that's going to be of use to you or not. All right, so that concludes our series of workshops on advanced search techniques. Hope you've learned something. Remember, if you have questions, feel free to contact me. My email is jennifer.bowers@du.edu. Or you can give me a call, 871-3403, or stop by the Research Center. Good luck with your research, and thanks for hanging in there. Bye.